Welcome to the fresh and vibrant airwaves of the Pride and Promotion podcast. Strap in and turn up the volume because you've landed on the podcast that's setting the bar for the most dynamic and inclusive marketing conversations. Join your host, Joseph Federico, as he prepares to dive into the world of marketing with an inclusive twist where we spotlight the LGBT community and celebrate the power of diversity. Get ready to be motivated as we bring in some of the most influential LGBT entrepreneurs and marketing trailblazers who are reshaping the.
Hey everybody, this is Joe Federico, and you're listening to another episode of the Pride and Promotion podcast. Thanks for joining. We have a very special guest tonight, Eric McKenna, and I've known him for quite a few years, and he is one of the horror gurus in my life and on the internet. Eric, thank you so much for joining. How are you tonight?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing fantastic. I'm very excited to be here. This is my first podcast that isn't on my own podcast.
Oh, that's fun. So tell everyone out there at TV Land what you've been up to, who you are, and we'll just jump right into the marketing, the Pride and Promotion portions of this cast.
Perfect. Yes. So my name is Eric McKenna, but my professional name, I guess you could say, is Eric Fright, which is my horror persona.
That's right.
Like you said, a horror guru. I've been a horror fan since I can have a memory of horror movies. So it's just my thing. If you can see, if this is a video, my background, I don't think I have to explain too much further on that.
It is gorgeous. By the way, I was just telling you I'm jealous.
I know. And it's a work in progress. We've got a lot of good things coming up, so it's exciting.
Yeah, so that's you just said something I wanted to jump into immediately. You said the horror persona. Let's talk about building a persona, right? Why is it so important as a podcaster? You think you have a microphone, you have a background, you speak with, on topics you're well versed in. Why is it so important to build the persona? How did you originally start to build yours in the horror genre?
That's a really good question. It's actually the question that I've been asking myself the past few years because, it's great to have conversations with people who are horror fans, but also members of the LGBTQ community because we already struggle with identity when we're younger, right? So I was struggling with my identity of being gay, but also like being the weirdo who was into all the horror stuff and not having a lot of people around to connect with on either level. So at some point in my late teens and 20s, I stopped allowing myself to be such a horror person, and I tried to be a different version of myself for a long time. And then in recent years, I've decided to allow myself to rediscover my passion for horror. So that's where this all came from, and that's where my original brand of the horror within me was born. I was trying to figure out a way of expressing my love for horror and relating it to my life with a lot of trauma and things like that. And then throughout the last 2 years, the horror within me was my baby. It was like a trial and error to figure out who I was, like you said, what type of podcast I wanted, what type of content I wanted to do. And I really kind of like tried so many different avenues. And then I got a little discouraged because, not to get too far into it, but if anyone's going out there to be a podcaster, a YouTuber, social media, anything digital, you might want to go out there with the best intentions that I just want to share my stuff and connect. But at some point, you're going to see other people doing what you're doing and doing it with so many more followers and views. And you're going to at least get a little discouraged at first.
Yeah.
You can't help it. So that I struggled with that for a few months.
Okay.
And then I just had a lot of other personal things in life. So I just decided to stop my other podcast because I felt like it was too many different things going on and I couldn't quite grasp it. And I had a lot of other things happening. And my husband likes to say that the universe always tells me that I'm doing the right thing with my horror stuff. And every time I say I'm not going to do my podcast, a sign from above tells me I should be
confident grouping like the angel of whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I do love to talk, which is why I like a podcast. So to answer the persona question, is the horror within me is where I found out what that horror within me is, and it was Eric Fright. It has always been Eric Fright. I just didn't have a name, and now I have this outlet to where when I put on my horror shirts, my horror hats, or I sit in this room, I can be Eric Fright and just unapologetically like talk about horror, geek out, and not be that and celebrate that weird kid that was always there. So in a way, the last few years really have just been this long journey, and now I'm finally at a point where I know what I want and who I am, and now I'm really ready to share different content with everyone.
That is so powerful, though. You had to literally pull the persona that was always within you, right, out of the confidence, say, man, now it's time to jolt up like Frankenstein and say, all right, now it's time for action. And we have to pull this out and then show up for ourselves.
We do. And it's funny that you use that wording, like show up for ourselves, because again, in this community, we are advocates for ourselves first before
we have to be.
we meet other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so powerful that you and so open and thank you for sharing that path with us and me here at GB Land, that you spent years figuring that out. And you put one podcast to rest, and you're evolving that into now the Eric Fright and working on your persona and your social. So how did you utilize, let's say, the old podcast, right? Yeah. And then we're into the new one. How did you utilize social media, and on which platform specifically, to promote yourself? Or were you not even doing social media when you started?
So I have a marketing background too, but very novice in the beginning. So I just started my marketing career a couple years ago as well. So you learn certain things in marketing. So I thought, you try to do everything at once. And then I also am a person that wants instant gratification like everybody else. So I'm like, I have to do everything at once all together. And I don't think that's the way. But I did use the old podcast. I used Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok originally. Those were just the three. And Facebook was decent. Okay. I would do some boosted ads, which I would pay just let's do a test and see, like, this ad, I'll just pay $10 for a week and see what kind of traction I get. And some people did start hitting the follow button. It's not a bad strategy to start to get in front of people, because it is really hard to organically grow with any platform. Like, it's rare that most people don't get those million likes or thousands of likes on one video. Like, it's not as common as it looks,
or even overnight. That doesn't happen overnight. No.
So those are the ones I started with.
Had those changed, or will they be changing with this evolution of your podcast?
So I've actually already changed everything's over to the Eric Fright Show now.
Okay.
Everything's been rebranded. But I also have more structure. I think I need more respect for every platform and what they offer. So, and if it's not even, it's strategic, obviously, because you want to gain followers, you want to gain people to connect with. But the other half of it is learning your creativity in you and what you're trying to put out there. So I've learned what content I'm putting on Facebook. There's certain things I share on all of them, but I love to make stupid memes. So I've been doing that on Instagram, where I'll find something related to the horror community and a still or something of a movie, and whatever I think of relating to it, I'll create it into a meme and I'll share that on Instagram. Or I'll share a TikTok reel on there. TikTok, I'll do short little videos on older movies that I used to love, and that seems to be really connecting with people, and I love it. And now I have a YouTube channel that has my old podcast on there, as well as just videos where I can do a rating, a review, watch with me, more of those video contents that don't have to be scheduled and super structured.
Sure.
And then obviously the podcast is very different than what the Horror Within Me was.
Yeah, which is good, because you're relating to the old, or allowing people to see the old branding to be recognizable in order to now follow you for your new podcast and your new structure.
Exactly. I mean, because I'm not ashamed of it. It needed to evolve. Like
social media has to evolve.
Yeah.
Or you stay in the Stone Ages, or or in our case, the cemetery, just dead and buried. And you don't, and then you don't just dig those bones back up, but you should. You put new life into them. How many times a week were you posting on social with your first podcast? Why?
So I was trying to do what everyone does. I'm on Google and I'm thinking, okay, this says post on Facebook once a week, and this says post on Instagram 3 times a day, and this says do this. And so I was trying all these strategies and getting super frustrated and feeling a little stressed, and it started to feel like a job. And I think that has to go back to the original question, which would be, why are you doing your show, or why are you doing this social channel? What is your goal, right?
Right.
Do you want to make a living? Are you trying to make money, or are you just trying to connect with people and just express yourself? So I think I wasn't even sure back then what I was trying to do. I was just trying to do anything to see what bit, you know? So back then I was posting whatever Google was telling me to post and just not really happy about it, just being miserable, throwing out half-ass, sorry if I can't curse.
No, you can, you're good.
Images and content that just wasn't, you know, I trying to fit in and not
Right.
really being myself.
Do you, or are you evolving into a content or more structured calendar with your campaigns going forward with the new one? And why?
Yes, I just find it's much easier. So I'm on X, formerly known as Twitter. We'll always call it Twitter. Every community is all that, like the horror community is huge, but it's so funny because it's like the people on Twitter and the people on TikTok are all like the content is all so different. So I have such a fun time. I'm on Twitter the most because it's a in the moment kind of thing. We're reposting, quoting and sharing things and just being in the moment there. Where TikTok is also just this great community where I'll just, like I said, I'll make a video. So my strategy usually is now I just try to post on all of them at least once a day, and then connect mostly. So I'll do one of my own organic posts, and then throughout the rest of the day is usually a lot of commenting or retweeting or stitching videos, just really connecting with other horror fans, because that's my strategy, is to meet more people and connect with the horror community.
Right.
So I'm not gonna. The best way to do that is to connect with the horror community. Connect with them.
Sure. Do you find that in working with the community, not only the queer community but the horror community, that you're getting a better response? Because you're saying it works, but you figured that out on your own, that you were actually part of, these communities trying to push the metrics.
Yeah,
for your own.
I've noticed it works more since I've realized the whole Eric Fright brand and being Eric Fright, because before it was like my name was like the horror within me. It was a brand. It was like it was a horror within me pod, and it was more like it just came off. In my opinion, some of them came off more business oriented, not very personal. And so I got likes here and there, but with Eric Fright, I'm Eric Fright. I'm a person. I'm talking to you. We're connecting like this. It's more on a more personal level, and I get a lot more followers. I've been getting followers on every platform since I've transferred and rebranded and been more myself. So even with the new podcast, I announced it, then I've gotten some hits and some people responding to me. It's just a very different experience. Yeah.
And you're putting yourself out there, but also on the platforms. And it's funny you said Twitter, formerly X. I say Twitter X. So you get the old generation, the new generation, you say Instagram, just on the platforms. But on all the platforms, you have to push the algorithm. And in my that's to your point, organically, right? So what you put into these platforms is what you're going to get out of the platforms as well.
Yeah. I will say Instagram for me is the most difficult.
How so?
It just seems like it's really difficult to get content in front of everyone and to really get like people are so Instagram is the young crowd too, so it's really, you got to get it. Like TikTok is also the young crowd, but TikTok has this whole different community base. So TikTok is my highest platform, but Instagram is my lowest.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm trying to learn a lot more about Instagram just to connect with the people on there more. And I've gotten a few new followers by doing that. But again, it's really like learning what each platform offers and utilizing it.
And that's a great point. That's an amazing learning for all out there, in TV land. Every platform is going to be different. If you're performing better on TikTok, then you slam, because it's my podcast, slam the shit out of it on TikTok. If you're lacking, not by lack of trying, or just being professional. If anyone's lacking on like an Instagram, for instance, then you may have to work, or someone has to work harder on that. And also check the metrics. Who's interacting with you at different times of the day? Do some A/B testing, see what's working. Is it maybe creatures of the night are on between 12 and 3 a.m.? Then you got to post and schedule things out, and you can schedule things out during different times. By the way, if you're a creator or a business on Instagram, if you're just a personal account, you can't schedule, by the way.
Yeah.
So,
a good point.
I mean, it all depends, right?
Yeah, I think that's also for people that are like trying to do things. The business accounts are important because they give you so many different metrics. But I don't know if anyone's on Facebook anymore, but there are a lot of Facebook groups within communities. Some of them don't allow pages in. So like I can't comment on certain horror pages as Eric Fright because it's a business page, which is interesting to know. But like, yeah, my Instagram, I believe, is a business account. My TikTok is because I have a collaboration with Fangoria.
Oh, so amazing. I've been reading them since I was a kid.
So I have a promo code. So I do like paid promotions for them on TikTok and Instagram now too. But yeah, so I'd like the business aspect to be able to look at the, like you said, different times. Like these are all important things. And then you don't have to have a marketing degree.
No.
But if you're going to get into this, you're going to have to learn marketing, period. And there's ways to do that. Like you don't have to go to college to learn certain things. Like there's YouTube, there's LinkedIn, Google. There's a whole bunch of like
YouTube. You can literally YouTube how to become a marketer. I mean, I'm not saying, to do that, but
I know. I mean,
you can.
Yeah. Well, to do your own brand stuff. But if you're trying to get a job in the corporate world, you need a degree.
Sure. But I do, because like just going to a whole different world for a moment, there are so many things you can do with a marketing degree as well. You don't have to just do social media.
Exactly.
That's what we're talking about, but
Yeah, my job, I am, I'm not going to put my personal whole job out there, but it is in marketing and it's not social media. I do website stuff.
Amazing. Yeah, which I knew, because I was on your cast. I think almost like a year and a half, maybe 2 summers ago. Yeah. But we met on social media. I was looking for podcasting on.
We met on Instagram, which is funny because, like I said, it was my lowest one of those. But I've met more people. Even though it's the lowest, more people have connected with me on Instagram about the show.
Okay, but don't discount that yet, because you're just rebranding yourself as Eric Fright.
Exactly.
So because, and I was just saying this on the last recording with our last guest, even if you think people are not watching or interacting, they're watching and interacting. They're reviewing the evergreen content. Never try to put a date on something unless it's seasonal content or a release of a horror movie or a show or anything like that. Just a little tip from the marketing. Going forward, what is coming down the pipeline for Eric Fright? Any big news you can share with us? Any other strategies in which you're going to utilize with social media? How are you going to put more time into Instagram? I'm really excited to hear about that, and just to hit us with all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so my brand is the Eric Fright Show, and I know that there's people out there that have like names for their podcast, names for their podcast, but for me, it's all the Eric Fright Show. So it'll be the Eric Fright Show podcast. I have the Eric Fright Show YouTube channel. I have the Eric Fright Show Twitch channel because I like to play retro video games. So
love that.
It all brands too, and it all kind of hubs at YouTube. So YouTube will have like Twitch gameplays you can go to watch. It'll have the RSS feed for the new podcast, which will also be on all major platforms as well. But everything's going to kind of central hub at YouTube, and then branch out to be promoted on social media. And I don't want to overkill the pushing of the podcast out to social media. I think that's important. People are so tired of ads on everything that you have to really organically insert what you're doing on a personal level for people to want to connect with it. If you just post, episode 1 is now streaming, people don't care.
What I mean? What is episode 1? Star Wars? Is it a new show? Like, what the hell is episode 1?
Yeah. So for the Eric Fright Show, the podcast is going to air August 2nd, and I've decided to do just 8 episodes. I want to really build out this content, build out the structure. And it is still horror themed. It's still horror movie and TV shows, but
Mhm.
it has 4 different segments now, and it all has a play on the word fright because of Eric Fright. So there, if I can like plug a little quick second,
No,
uh,
please. This is why you're here to promote. Come
yeah.
on.
So the first segment is going to be called the Fright Files, which will be like real life stories that I find online or personal stories that relate to
Ooh.
a theme within
Hmm.
like whatever movie or TV show we're doing.
Right.
And then we'll do what's going to be called like our featured fright, which is the main movie or TV show that we'll talk about the plot, my personal feelings, like
Mhm.
in-depth discussion about that. Then the third segment is going to branch off and just be frightful facts, which will list 10 facts from the movie. And
Right.
then we'll end with what's called Fright Picks, which will be just 5 movie recommendations that I think you should watch before the next episode. And it's going to be released every 2 weeks.
I love
And
that.
like I said, just 8 episodes. So it'll start in August. It'll end first week of November. So it'll be right for spooky season.
Yes. Okay. Let's look about that. How do you plan, or how have you utilized seasonal content, which everybody out there in TV land is a particular season or holiday to boost your metrics on social media and to be more creative. So for spooky season, how do you plan on, or how have you utilized that with your content? What kind of content or your favorite content have you created around a specific season to promote you?
In the past, I did like Halloween favorite episodes for spooky season where I would post those, and they actually do pretty well. This, like you said, when you're around the themed content,
Mhm.
it's just finding like the ones that I think it's important to have a balance of what other people love, but also what you love. You
Right.
can't just try to just pick something because other people like it, because if people are going to know that you don't know what you're talking about. You have to pick stuff that you're into, and if you're not into it, you better learn about it. You know what I mean? So you gotta be able to sell it. That's marketing. So you have like, so for spooky season, I'm excited, and I said to my husband, I was like, it's the perfect time to introduce a new horror podcast.
Mhm.
It's a brand new show. My name is the Eric Fright Show. It's like, it's something new. Like, get it out there at that season. And he's like, well, why don't you just do it in May? I was like, because I don't want to rush it. I'm really building things out and figuring it out. And I'm excited because spooky season like is also my favorite season. Like Halloween has always been like the fall, all of that. So I'm excited to start in August when I believe spooky season starts.
Yes,
So
always.
So I'm gonna have a Friday the 13th episode land on that day. Oh, it's going to be on air on Fridays.
I
So it's
can't
gonna
wait. That's
be
awesome.
Fright Show Fridays. It's all very branded.
But it should be branded. You can't, as we were talking about before in the green room, before we hit, record, nothing worth it should be rushed. It should take time, be strategic. It should literally, even with content, take your time. If you're not in a rush with a rebrand or episodes or anything like that, just be
Hmm.
strategic, be consistent, and show up.
Yeah, and be confident because that was something I lacked too. I was just I didn't have complete confidence in myself before.
Mm,
So every time I put something out, it was with a little reservation, a little bit of
interesting.
fear. So now I'm unapologetic. I'm just me,
Good.
and I'm just doing what I like.
What is your creative process? I know we were talking about the strategy, showing up, be consistent. What is your specific strategy in scheduling content out? What's your creative process?
I
Now,
think
then, your new one evolves, whatever that looks like. But let
more
us
so
know.
more so now what I do, and this is going to probably come off a little strange.
No,
I listen
this
to
is
horror music. I listen to
oh,
music from horror movies. I listen to theme songs. I listen to things to get me in a presence because you don't always have time to sit down and just pick a TV show or something to just sit there and get yourself in the mood. So
mhm,
I will play, like I'll get in the shower and I'll play certain songs, and it'll start to remind me and open my brain up of like, oh, I remember this movie. I want to talk about this movie, or like, things that I've forgotten about. It'll unlock those memories
right.
listening to these themes and these songs of conversations that I've wanted to have before. So that's my process now. I listen to horror music.
What other influencers have you worked with in the queer community, but also in the horror community? That
So
assist with your boosting of your new show.
I think it's really interesting that the queer community and the horror community are so intertwined though. Like there's so many queer people that are horror obsessed and you
Mhm.
don't even realize it, but I haven't really collaborated with many because I'm still like learning me before I want to jump too far into like
That's smart.
collaborations.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do have a lot of, like I said, people I connect with. There are a few on Instagram, a few on TikTok that are part of the queer community, and we're all very supportive. It's like it's an unsaid, even with you, you're a queer horror community. Like there's just something unspoken between us that we know that we're like connected
Yeah.
and support each other.
And we should, I mean, especially with Pride coming up and everything else,
Yeah.
but that's how it should be. We
Yeah.
should be supporting each other, not only on social media where we met and where you meet other influencers and other people in the queer community, but that's how it should be. We're all colors of the rainbow. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We all should be supporting each other. Even more so, but to that point, on social, through social. It takes seconds to get on and share a comment, share a thought, ask you a question, retweet, whatever that may look like to promote. And that's really important. Like not only as an influencer, but again, for the greater community, at least in my opinion.
I agree. I think it's also important to note that it can be very dark out there. So it's something to always like, you have to mentally prepare yourself. If you're really going to try to go out and put yourself out there, put content out there, you have to be prepared. The more exposure you get, you're going to start to get those negative people.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be confident in yourself and your content and who you are, because people will try to tear you down just because that's just what they like to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
The troll.
yeah, the trolls. I've come across a few, and
Me too.
okay,
Yeah,
so
me too.
I joke. I'm a huge goofball. Like that's just who I am. It doesn't really come off that much on social media, which I'm trying to let out a little bit more because I'm like,
Girl, let that out. Yeah,
where is
that's part of
that?
your
You
persona.
know, like
Yeah.
I'm just this. I like to make people laugh. I
Yeah.
like to be goofy. So I always laugh like when I get like these negative comments. I'm just like, whoo! I'm getting more exposure. The trolls are coming. You know,
And
like
you made it. Yeah.
yeah. But also, on a more somber note, just block them. You don't have to engage. You don't
No.
have to dwell on it. If somebody's being negative, I do the same thing in my life physically. If I don't connect with someone and they're not bringing me good energy, I don't connect with you.
Right.
So it's no different on any social media channel. If somebody is not connecting with you and they're trying to tear you down, there is a block on every single platform. Just block them. It's just that's it. Don't respond. Don't
Don't
engage.
engage.
Just block them.
Did you originally engage with these people? I'm just, just curious. Like when you first started out, or when they first started coming.
Sometimes I want to be petty. I want to, respond back.
But also, we're gay. We kind of have that in our DNA, but that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like if I'm anything, I'm honest to a fault. But no,
Yeah. Right. The same.
I try to also be mindful of how I respond back. I
Mm-hmm.
always try to respond back with a little bit more intelligence to make them feel a little lower.
Right.
Because again, I'm petty, but I think it's important to also, if it depends on what the comment is about. If it's something that's like, so I had a comment on a video I made like a week ago, and there's a couple comments, so I didn't respond much to them. I'll like them. That's it. It wasn't a big deal video, but last year there were some comments on like pride themed, gay bashing kind of comments.
Wow.
Those I feel are important to respond to, and you stand up for yourself, because it's I'm lost of words, but it's a principle of who I am
It is.
and an advocate. And I want other queer people who, there are children on these apps, that might be looking up to us. And we're, examples, regardless if we only have 100 followers, 30 of them could be children who are just happy to see someone like them
Right.
on social media. So
Correct.
I think it's really important, no matter how little your platform is, to always like stand with your principles. And like when it comes to those kinds of comments and the way that you engage, I don't think you should be, just popping off the mouth. I think you should like strategically respond and defend. But and then obviously if it continues to keep going, then you can just block them. But I do think it's important for people to see you shutting it down.
Of course it is, especially because, don't get me wrong, I love social media as a marketer. You love social media. Marketing is the way of the future, in my opinion. There are many statistics on Google and beyond that prove that point. However, it's important to have the presence, and it makes the downside, the darker side of the web, is everybody hides behind the screen. or a phone or headphones. And we would, I would like to think not act like this in real time and, in real life, but it makes it easier for us to utilize, anonymity of a screen or a screen name or a social platform
Mm-hmm.
to become a troll. So it's important that we, as you have said, especially during Pride, you don't know who's watching you. There could be somebody right now watching us and be like, well, I have to contact this person or that person, or I'm feeling recognized. You're speaking to me directly.
Yeah.
So I love how you said that you have to speak with conviction and sometimes shut that shit down.
Yes.
At the same time.
Exactly.
Shut that shit down. So going forward, where do you see the new Eric Fright and everything that comes along with them? Again, I'm so happy for you. I want to celebrate the hell out of that.
Yes,
Going
I
forward.
appreciate it.
Of course. But that's why not only the queer community, the horror community, the podcasting community, like we're down, whether we want to be or not.
We are.
After the 8 episodes, right? After 8, amazing start. Where are you thinking about taking your platforms on social beyond that?
So I'm still, in the very early stages. I'm like building out my notes. I'm getting ready to like start recording. So I'm not too far down there because there are some other like uncertainties that I need to figure out. Just to throw a little bit of personal out there, like I said, so my husband and I are waiting to adopt a baby. We are in the waiting process. So I can get a call right now.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
There are some things, getting prepared and getting ready for that. I'm also going back to school to get my MBA.
Congratulations.
So I'm
Yeah.
going to be doing that. I like to stick busy. So Eric
Yeah.
Fright isn't going anywhere. It's just finding the spot that works. So after the 8 episodes, ideally in my mind right now, I would like to start working on a second season and having a idea of my second season. I want guests. I would like to interview people. I have an idea of where it could fit into the show. In the
Sure.
first season, I don't have anyone, but the second season, I really want to start bringing more, like you were saying, people in to collaborate with, celebrating more horror people, more queer horror people, and really just highlighting people that are not, I don't have to go after the big name people, right? I would go
Right.
after people that are not doing, that are doing what I'm doing so we can celebrate it together.
Yes.
I have it's so funny. I have I guess I can say a fan who, it's a weird term, who was such a huge fan of the other show, who I'm going to tell a quick story. I'll be fast.
No, you got time.
My husband was sick last year. He got really sick with meningitis and had to be hospitalized and go to rehab and learn to walk again. Like it was a long process. It was really rough. So someone had to replace him at his job for a few months. So when he came back, he met this guy and they got to talking about it. And the guy was like, "Oh, I'm a horror fan." And my husband loves to talk about me all the time. He's the best
As
guy
you
in the
should.
world. And he's like, "Oh, my husband has a horror podcast." And he's like, "Oh, what is it?" And he's like, "Oh, it's called The Horror Within Me." He's like, "Are you serious?" I listen to that show all the time.
Wow.
It's so strange. Like this guy that replaced my husband was like a fan of my podcast. So he's been in touch, that he knows my husband, wherever. He's working on a TV show that he wants to, like he's writing a pilot script. So he's like, "I've never done it. I don't have a lot of horror people that I know, but would you read the script?" So I'm in the process of reading his script and giving him some information. So I'm thinking of like maybe doing some kind of bonus episode or something with him. That'll be nice.
That'd be really nice. But that's the power of community, number one. Number two, social media.
Yep.
And the power of having a commonality between you never know who's going to watch or read or listen to anything that we say on social media.
Yeah.
Or beyond, or the podcast. So that is such an amazing story. And I know it's going to work out for you. I already know that. As we wrap up, one more question for you, Eric. Somebody starting out in podcasting and not really having the platforms that they understand or can utilize. What's some advice you can give somebody that's just brand spanking new, looking to get themselves online and on social?
Okay, this is what I have learned. So I'll give my words of wisdom. Okay, you need a decent mic. You don't need a $500 microphone. They have my microphone I'm using right now is $70. I think it's the Samson Q2U. You can get
Nice.
it at Best Buy. You can get it on Amazon. Sounds great. You just need a recording software. If you are on a PC, I'm using Audacity. There are YouTube videos for everything you need to start a podcast.
Correct.
So I would just say that you don't need to spend a bunch of money to start off. I would just say you need a mic, a decent pair of headphones for, and a space where your room isn't going to echo a lot, because I had that issue in the beginning too. It's about the echoing. And don't try to figure it all out at once. Just get your concept, understand what you want to do for the podcast, and then from there make sure you have the beginning equipment. You don't have to worry about doing a video podcast right away. You don't have to worry about all of that. Just get a camera, get a recording, and just do it. And then just watch some tutorials on how to do some audio editing, and you should be fine.
I love that. It sounds simple because it is, and you don't need a lot of overhead to get started. Is what you're trying to say as well. Just get started.
My first microphone. My husband's the reason I started the podcast.
Oh,
my first microphone was like $40 from Amazon. It was not great, but he was like, "I'm not spending a lot of money on a microphone, but I know you've been wanting to do a podcast. So for Christmas one year, I opened a microphone." He was like, "I think you should start it," and then here I am.
And the rest is history, as they say. Eric, we certainly have to have you on the podcast in the future, but please tell everybody where we can find you on all the social platforms, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yes. So my handles on everything are at Eric Fright Show. So I'm on everywhere. I'm Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube mainly. So go hit that follow button.
Definitely hit the follow button. Yes. We wish you all the success, Eric, with everything going forward in the new show. So thank you so much for joining us on the Pride and Promotion tonight. We appreciate it.
So much fun. I love this. Thank you.
Yeah. And everybody out there in TV land, again, follow us, follow Eric Fright on all the socials, the follow button. And thanks for joining another episode of the Pride and Promotion Podcast. Go forward with pride, and we'll talk soon, everybody. Take care. Peace.
And just like that, we're putting the finishing touches on another fabulous episode of the Pride and Promotion Podcast. If today's conversation struck a chord, why not sing our praises with a quick rating and review on your podcast platform of choice? Your support is the spotlight that helps us shine and bring more folks into our ever-expanding audience. And don't forget to hit subscribe. Let's get social too. Follow us online for all the extra goodies, sneak peeks, and continued dialogue about marketing with pride and purpose. Tune in next time as we unfurl more colorful stories, champion the cause of inclusivity, and learn more from the creme de la creme of the industry. Until our paths cross again, keep pushing boundaries, stay true to yourself, and infuse every project with pride.